Welcome, everyone, to the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals podcast series, featuring great discussions, insight, and resources on all things related to education and administration. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the MASSP podcast. My name is Ryan Casey, and we are continuing on with Season 6. Today, we're going to be talking with some special guests, middle school leaders from all across the state. Are here to talk about the return to school and what it looks like in 2021. I'd love to say that we're on the back end of the pandemic, but as many of us are finding out within the last couple of weeks, that's probably not the case. So we do just want to find out today, what are some things that are similar to last year? What are some things that are different? What's better? What's worse? What are some things that we still are learning about as we're dealing with what school looks like in 2021. So the first person that's with us today is our current MASSP president and principal at Lance Creuse Middle School East, Nina Davis. Nina, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here today.
Awesome. We also have representing the west side of the state and Region 7 Board of Director member, Travis Thomsen from Portage Northern Middle School. How are you doing, Travis?
Great, Ryan. Thanks for having me on.
Then we finally have our North representative here. We have a longtime MASSP member and principal at Grayling Middle School, Tim Sanchez. Thanks for being here, Tim.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it.
So as I mentioned, guys, really just want to find out right off the bat, kind of how is the 2021-22 school year going? If I asked you this question maybe 3 weeks ago if we were recording then, your answer might be different than maybe it is all of a sudden right now in middle of September. So if you can just kind of start with how's the school year going? What's kind of similar? What's different than last year? We'll talk about maybe specific MASS or guidelines or mandates that you have in place right now on my next question. But Nina, do you mind starting?
Of course. So far, so good. School year is off to a great start. We are only in our second week. We started after Labor Day. So things are progressing well. We transitioned this year off of a block schedule. So we're back to a 6-hour day. We're trying to get used to that. But in general, things are rolling ahead full course. We're happy to be back in person and have our kids here in the building.
Yeah, we're back. We're in week 3. Things have been going really well. Really the only difference between a quote unquote normal school year and this year is that kids have masks on. Athletics are up and running, clubs are up and running. So as far as like building culture and things like that, all the things that make middle school great are up and going.
Awesome. And how about at Grayling?
Yeah, we're fortunate. We were actually pretty fortunate last year. We had a lot of safety procedures in place, and we are now in an area where our numbers are pretty low. So we are masks optional, but everything else that we did last year, we've kind of kept in place. So no sharing. We're not using lockers. I guess that sounds weird, right? No sharing in a middle school. We're not teaching that, but we're not sharing like supplies and whatnot. And so, but yeah, so basically everything we did last year as a safety mitigation, we have kept in place aside from the masks. Okay,
so you're treating it more like last year with some of those safety precautions still. Would you say that's similar with other schools around you right now in that area, Tim?
To be honest, it's our third week and the schools in our district are in the same boat. And I haven't really had a chance to talk to other schools in our district. I know some schools north of us, they just got a mask mandate from their health department. So I know they have some unique challenges that they are dealing with there. But in terms of our school, again, I think things are going about as well as we can hope right now, the whole knock on wood, but our kids are resilient and our teachers are doing great. And a lot of we were fortunate to be in person last year. So a lot of those using Google Classroom, using Kami, using all these different softwares, we had the opportunity to do that last year. So now it's just kind of, it feels a little normal to us, which is weird. So.
Okay, so then for Travis and Nina, same thing for you guys. Knowing that there's different mandates based on what's going on at maybe your local health department in different parts of the state. Where are both of your schools at with this in terms of masking, quarantining, contact tracing? Travis, if you want to go first.
Sure. It felt like the entire month of August, we were waiting for our county health department, excuse me, to make a decision on what a mask mandate would potentially look like. Our board meetings got pretty contentious, both sides of the coin sharing their viewpoints. So the health department mandate really helped us out. So Kalamazoo County mandated masks K6. Our district here in Portage, we extended that to K8, just knowing that keeping our 6th graders away from 7th and 8th graders was going to be difficult in a middle school. And our high schools even implemented a kind of a limited mask policy. So high school students in Portage are required to wear their mask while in the classroom. Outside of that, the lunchtime is our biggest challenge because that's really the only time our kids are unmasked throughout the day. So really with the new MDHHS quarantine and contact tracing protocols, our kids wearing masks is really helpful. But lunchtime will still, I think, all year be the question mark for us.
Leaders are listening to this and they've been part of our In the Middle with You webinar series. That was something that was discussed during session 2 was the almighty lunchroom issue. So I'm assuming you are not alone with that, Travis. Same question for you, Nina. How about L'Anse Creuse Middle School East?
So in L'Anse Creuse, it's similar to something Travis said. We are waiting on our county here this September, and we're actually still waiting on Macomb County. We have not received a mask mandate or direction. It is left up to the individual districts. So as of now, L'Anse Creuse has decided to recommend masks, but masks are not required throughout our district. So we are just doing the best that we can with socially distancing our students in the classrooms. Macomb County also has not adopted the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services recommendations. So we, as a district, are contact tracing 3 feet or less. We are notifying our parents if students come within the 3 to 6 feet area, letting them know to watch for symptoms, but we are, only contact tracing if students are 3 feet or less in classrooms.
Very good. The reason we wanted to have a middle school specific group on this podcast episode was because of the wide range of students that you have in your building. So whether it's a 7-8 or 6-8 or 5-8 building, especially when it comes to vaccines, right? Because we know it's been approved for 12 and up. So I'm just curious to know, has that been an issue, or what's been the response to that in your buildings? Are you treating certain students any different, knowing that maybe only a portion of your building is even eligible to get vaccinated, whether they are getting it done or not? And Travis, you kind of touched on it, talking about even just the mask mandate piece, right? Your county said it was K through 6. Well, then what in the heck do you do with 7th and 8th graders? So it sounds like you guys adapted. So maybe Travis, if you want to start, how are you handling the vaccine issue?
Yeah, Ryan, because of the mask mandate, it's really kind of a non-issue. Just listening to some of the folks talk during in the middle series this morning, districts collecting vaccine card information, tracking it. We aren't doing any of that in Portage. We do ask the question when we have to call a parent for contact tracing and things like that because of the end result. But for the most part, it's not really anything that we talk about with our students. We only talk to our parents about it when we have to.
And how about same thing for you up at Grayling, Tim?
Yeah, we don't know who is or who is not. Again, it's still the school year still feels very, very new, right? We had a 3-day week and a 4-day week, and here we are, day 2 of this week. But hopefully come was it October or November, we might get the where it's approved for the younger kids. That would be great. But again, same thing in the middle series that we had today. got some good ideas in terms of, how do we track that? But the same thing, if and when we have to call, that's one of our questions. Have you been vaccinated or have you had COVID in the past 90 days? So I think that's kind of a standard where we're just asking that question right now, but we don't have a database per se in terms of who all has them. So I wouldn't even have a guess as far as who the percentage of our 12-year-olds and up that have the vaccine.
So in Macomb County in general, our vaccination percentage is fairly low, even for our adults. So we found we are looking through the MICR system when we contact, trace, and quarantine a student. We found that to not always be reliable. So we do also ask the parents, but we're finding that we have a very low rate as well with our students in terms of vaccination. So, we're just continuing to quarantine as need be, and, trying to social distance as much as we can so that we're not running into that issue. Again, as noted, the lunchroom is our biggest, that's our barrier that we're encountering, and trying to work out kinks in there to see what we can do better so that we're not quarantining as many students in the lunchroom. But in the classrooms, we have done a pretty good job of being able to social distance our students at 3 feet or more. The only exception is we do have tables. So generally we have 2 students that sit together at a table in each classroom.
So I'm curious to know next, what has been the focus at your building this year for your students and your staff? I know, talking to a lot of administrators from across the state, a lot of schools have been focusing on maybe whether it be learning loss or social emotional learning needs, things like that. I'm just curious to find out what has been your approach, your focus for the start of the school year. And we'll say, Tim, you want to go first?
Sure. We adopted actually 2 years ago, pre-pandemic. Every kid, ELA was typically our Achilles heel. Our math scores are normally really, really good, and our ELA scores just weren't matching that. So we actually went to a 2-hour day with English. So every kid has 2 hours of English, I should say. And then with our math, we actually have some block classes. So we have math 6, math 7, math 8, but we also have a block math class, which would be 2 hours if they took it, which is Essentials of 6 Math 7 or Essentials of 7 Math 8. So if a kid didn't do great in Math 7, let's say, we could put them in Essentials of 7 Math 8 as an 8th grader. So if they didn't do so well. So we have those 2 supports already built into our schedule. We thought that was really helpful for us. And again, we were fortunate the majority of our kids came to school, didn't do online last year. And we were able to stay in person. But for the kids that did go online and weren't successful, when they enrolled back, we were able to put them into those block math classes. And then also every kid has 2 hours of ELA. And so if they needed an additional academic support class, we could put them in that. But for the most part, we we hope that that's going to help. But we also do NWEA in the fall, winter, and spring. So we'd be able to see pretty quickly in the winter if that's being successful or not.
A clever way to do that without having to, specifically hold them back or make them take a class with, students from a different grade because still at that middle school level. That's, that would be probably a difficult pill to swallow for many students. So Nina or Travis, how about one of you?
So pre-pandemic, we addressed growth mindset as well as trauma-informed strategies as part of our affective school improvement goals. So we are continuing to look at those areas now after the pandemic, knowing that, we need to make sure that all of our students have a growth mindset, as well as looking at those trauma-informed strategies because we've all experienced some sort of trauma, especially now, having lived through the pandemic. We did focus our first week of school solely on building relationships and kind of getting back into the swing of things and making sure we establish those before jumping into anything else. So that, has been our goal. Obviously, we want to build relationships year round, but we made sure and have a strong focus on that for the first full week of school.
A lot of the same things that Nina just mentioned, spending a lot of time building those relationships. We started our week of professional development with our staff, kind of with the same approach that we wanted our staff to take with our kids, being curious, asking a lot of questions, checking in. I think one of the things that the pandemic has highlighted is that even our most put together students and our seemingly most put together staff are still very fragile in a lot of ways, and checking in on them and making sure that they're okay has been super important. We expect that they do that with our kids, but as a building leader, that's one of the things that I've focused on, just checking in, seeing how they're doing mentally. And for our kids, last year we started doing a couple of lessons per week around social emotional learning, coping strategies, things of that nature. We're continuing that work this year. We have a 25-minute block every day. It's called XTS, Extra Time and Support. And typically that is used for filling academic holes, remediation, those types of things with students. And we're dedicating 1 to 2 days a week for explicit, intentional, social, emotional lessons being delivered by our teachers to our kids. So I don't see this going away anytime soon. So just continuing to build that mental health capacity for our staff and our students is going to be important.
That's awesome. What a nice approach to try and deal with those specific things you have going on, in your buildings that your staff and students need. I could honestly sit here and listen to all the different creative things you all come up with and how to tackle certain problems. So I appreciate you sharing. Final question here. In terms of staffing, what do you still need for your building to be or remain successful? So is it, it's probably based on maybe the focus that we just talked about too. Is it additional mental health professionals, which we know there are different money available to get those in your building? Is it technology specialists? Is it having dedicated virtual or hybrid teaching staff or support? Nina, you want to go first here?
Sure. So we were lucky enough that our district increased counseling support across the district. So we did gain an additional counselor in our building, which has proved to be extremely successful for us and something that we needed for a long time. We also received literacy specialists, K-8. So we have a dedicated literacy personnel in our building this year. So that has been great in terms of addressing our literacy needs, because that is an area of school improvement as well that we've been focusing on. So we've done a lot of PD in that area, and we have a lot of ongoing PD that staff members able to go into teachers' classrooms, work with teachers, work with students, pull out students. So it has been great. So I think moving forward, while we're focusing a lot on literacy, we're going to continue to focus on, all of our content areas. We definitely want to address our math, the area of math, because it is one of our lower areas that we're hoping to see some strides in. But again, as a district, we've done a good job with utilizing some of the COVID funds and redirecting some of those so that we have additional staffing in the buildings.
We need people. Fortunately, our professional teaching staff, we're pretty well situated here in Portage. We did increase our school psych ratio here in our district too. So instead of having a half-time school psych at the middle school, we now all have full-time psychs. But we're in dire need of paraprofessionals, hall supervisors, bus drivers, custodians. It's those support roles that you really feel coming back after having 18 months away from the building. So we're looking for bodies.
I think Tim's going to tell us everything is perfect. They don't need anything at Grayling Middle School. They're good to go. Next question, but just in case, Tim.
Hilarious. No, Travis, that's actually a good point with bus drivers. People forget that we actually we're very short in bus drivers, and that puts a unique stressor on the beginning of the day before we even get started. With kids coming in late or whatever, even if it's just an administrator or office strain, that usually starts the day off not on a positive note. So I didn't even think of that, and you're exactly correct. For us, probably technology specialists would be helpful. We've shifted so much to doing online stuff. Like we're ready, we think, we think we're ready to, if we have to go to distance learning, we can, and we shifted almost everything to virtual. But with that, there's Kami, there's Map Accelerator, there's Newsela, there's Clever, there's all these things. And if something's not working, who do you ask? And so that becomes a unique stressor for us. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, who should we go to? Who's our go-to person for each individual technology piece? So that way our staff knows who to go to with questions.
And I'm not going to lie, I'm thrilled that you didn't have to stop this recording to go deal with the contact tracing issue. So we made it through. We made it through this, and I really appreciate.
Or drive a bus, Brian. Or we didn't have to go drive a bus either.
Yeah, that's true. Do you mind just sharing real quick? And Nina, I'll have you go first. If somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Whether it's email or Twitter, you mind sharing that? We'll just kind of go around the table real quick.
Absolutely. I can be reached via email or Twitter. My email is davisni@lc-ps.org. My Twitter is @diva_principal.
Travis, how about you?
Sure. Same. My email is tthomsen@portageps.org. And my Twitter handle is @ThomsenTravis.
And Tim?
All right. Well, I don't have a huge social media presence. It actually makes sense because I was trying to get @diva_principal on Twitter and it was taken. So I know now why. But I'm a lurker. I'm a lurker on social media, so I don't really have one there. But email, yeah, T Sanchez. That's SANCHEZ @CASDK12.net, which is super confusing. But if you go to our Grayling Middle School page, you'll be able to find it real quick.
And hey, you can just do Diva Principal with the number 2, Tim. So don't overthink it.
Oh, I did not think of that.
Well, thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'm guessing if we had the same exact conversation in a month or two from now, you might have similar answers. You might have some very different responses as well. But thank you for your time. And thanks to everybody that's listening to this podcast. Remember, you can find this podcast and more on the Apple Podcast Store or wherever you listen to podcasts, including visiting massp.com/podcast. Season 6 is underway. More is in store each and every month. Thank you for listening and have a great day.